In October of 2020, Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed as the replacement for the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg and became the 9th Supreme Court Justice. And this confirmation has come under a lot of scrutiny and controversy, and some felt the process was rushed, and some even felt it should never have taken place at all so close to an election. But most of the fear around this nomination lied around the fact that the Supreme Court Justice will now be a majority conservative, which is the very reason this presidency rushed the process in the first place. But I'm not here to discuss the ethics of the nomination. This isn't really a political channel. This isn't going to be a left-wing or a right-wing discussion. I'm here to talk about how flaws in the logic and how we set up our Supreme Court justices has led us here, and how we can bring decisive rulings and bipartisanship to the Supreme Court. This is my bold idea for restructuring the Supreme Court Justice, and you're watching Bold Ideas. When we talk about democracy, one of the founding pillars and key attributes of a democratic society is a free, fair, trustworthy judicial system. And the Supreme Court justices are tasked with the highest judicial power in the country, the ability to interpret or literally change the Constitution. In other words, these 9 individuals can mold and amend the very basis of our entire country's governing laws. And since 1869, the number of Supreme Court justices has been 9. Stayed at 9. That's 151 years. Not many things stay the same for 150 years. So that's probably make you think, well, okay, if it's been around for 150 years, there's probably a good reason for that. And you're right. I mean, there is. It just kind of makes sense, right? If there's an odd number of Supreme Court justices, that means that no matter what, every issue, every time, there will be a verdict one way or another. And that's what we want, right? Well, Supreme Court justices, as I said, they're pretty powerful, and they regularly make decisions that will shape the lives of millions of Americans for decades or lifetimes, like in 2015 when they legalized gay marriage. And not only can they make groundbreaking decisions, but they're not allowed to be fired. So once the Supreme Court justice is chosen, you're stuck with them forever, or until they die, or they retire. But the point is, it's a pretty permanent position, and you really wouldn't be far off in saying that these 9 individuals are the only thing standing between a democracy and a dictatorship. That's how powerful their decisions are. This is why whenever a spot opens up, the Democrats and Republicans begin fighting so hard. Okay, I know they fight all the time, but even more than usual, and it's all an attempt to block the sitting president of the opposite party to select a justice because they know another spot might not open up for years. And ensuring the selection of a judge in your party will put you that much closer to winning cases favoring the right or the left, whichever side you're on. This is really unfortunate because you'd hope the people charged with upholding and interpreting our very Constitution and the people selecting them would be bipartisan. This shouldn't be an issue based on party affiliation, right? But on the other hand, there's no way around this. We need an odd number to ensure a verdict is reached, and that means there will always be partisan fighting to win that majority, right? So there's no other way around this. Or is there? Let's take a look a little lower down the judicial rung to standard criminal courts to understand what I'm going to be saying next. Now, some of you may have been old enough to have been on jury duty and experienced a trial, but just for those who don't, I'm going to run through this real quick. Every trial, of course, has the defendant, which is the person being accused, the claimant, which is the person making the accusation, the lawyers, a judge, and 12 jurors. And we all know what the defendant and the claimant do. I'm going to assume we all know what the lawyers do. The real key here is the jury and what the judge do. The judge is not the one who actually decides if they're innocent or guilty. That's actually up to the jurors. The judge will only decide the punishment. But the jurors, they're the ones who decide innocent or guilty. So you may be wondering, where am I going with this? Well, there are 12 jurors. 12. That's 3 more than the Supreme Court. Not only that, it's an even number. We'll get to that soon. But why do we have 12 jurors? Because every single one of those jurors must agree. There has to be a consensus. That's how our courts work. And if there isn't a consensus, then we send them back, they look over more evidence, they discuss further whatever it is they need to do. But whatever the case may be, they have to have a consensus. There has to be 12-0 ruling, guilty or innocent. But why are we so strict? I mean, isn't a 10-2 enough of a majority, or even 11-1? Well, no, because our laws stipulate that in order to convict someone, we have to be sure without a shadow of a doubt. An 11-1 decision, that's a shadow of a doubt, and we're not going to convict someone unless everyone agrees they're guilty. We can't get everyone to agree that someone is guilty. Should we really be convicting them, or giving them the death penalty, or life in prison, or 10 years in prison, or whatever it is? No. So why don't we hold our Supreme Court justice to the same standards? I mean, if you can't get 9 of the brightest, smartest, supposedly fairest, least corrupt people to agree on something, should we really be changing the federal law based on that? If an 11-1 jury isn't enough to put someone behind bars for 3 months, why would we allow a 5-4 Supreme Court decision to literally change the legal interpretation of our Constitution? Doesn't that logic just seem inconsistent to you? We need to hold them to the same standards as our jury. If they can come up with a unanimous decision, we declare it a hung justice, and they go back to their rooms or wherever it is they do these things, and they don't come back until we have uniformity and a decision. Just like we need a unanimous decision when to declare someone guilty of any crime that goes to court, we should demand a unanimous decision from our highest levels of court. And in case you're wondering about the possibility of judges holding out on decisions and not allowing things to get done, you might be surprised to learn that a New York Times article actually found that about 20% of all Supreme Court decisions are actually unanimous anyways. So they really aren't as partisan as you might fear. For the most part, they do work together and they often agree with each other, but the 5-4 decisions and the split decisions are just what gets into the news. So assuming you're still with me, you're probably at least entertaining the idea now that we need to change how our justices go about justice. You're probably at least considering that perhaps we should demand uniformity. Perhaps we should demand unanimous decisions just as we do with our jurors. But what about the number 9, right? I've emphasized numbers a lot throughout this discussion, and then I kind of made it seem like the number of justices would come under attack as well. And you're right. I believe the number of Supreme Court justices should be decreased to 8 or increased to about 10, maybe 12. You're probably confused as to why I have a problem with that. I mean, couldn't we just leave it at 9? If we need a unanimous decision, then it doesn't matter if there's a majority or not, right? They come up with a unanimous decision and we're good to go. We shouldn't need to have to change it. And you're right when it comes to that specific point, but I have a different reason why I want to make it even, and it comes down to partisan divide. As I said before, whenever a spot opens up, both sides fight tooth and nail to get a representative of their party in the room where it happens. And sometimes the president may rush the decision, desperate to appoint someone before the election and their chance passes if they were to be voted out. But what if they didn't have to? What if they didn't have to fight over who gets in? What if each party, Democrat and Republican, chose half? Now you're probably thinking, okay, what about the Green Party? Okay, well, as of now, America is and has been for a very long time a two-party system, so until that changes, we're going to go with this. Each party will choose half. And if a Republican or Democrat justice passes away or retires, no matter who is president, that party will have the right to appoint the replacement judge. So, for example, that means if we had 5 Republicans and 5 Democrat justices, and then one of the Republican justices die, even if a Democratic president is in charge, the Republican Party will still have the right to replace them with a judge of their choice, which will most likely be Republican, of course, but that's up to them. So essentially, the Republican Party will be the ones selecting the next judge to maintain the equilibrium, and if it was a Democrat that died or retired, then the Democrats would be selecting a replacement to maintain the equilibrium, to maintain half and half. And this will completely eliminate bad faith nominations and rush nominations because it no longer matters how quickly you appoint someone. Each party gets half. You have your set amount of judges that you get, so if someone dies or retires, you can take your time, be as careful, be as selective in your process as you want to be. Take as long as you want because there's no rush. And this will also force them to choose the best justices they can, and they'll never feel like they have to nominate a super liberal to combat a recent conservative inductee since they all have to agree to get anything done anyways. And so that's going to promote working together, something this country could certainly do with a little more of. And because it gives both sides security and that there will never be a majority against them, I think there's actually a real chance that both sides could agree to this. But most importantly, my bold plan for restructuring the Supreme Court justice will ensure the courts will never have a majority in either direction of the political spectrum. Every judge is selected with the utmost care, and our Constitution will never be changed on a 5-4 vote because the judge happened to die at the right time, allowing the sitting president of the time to select and essentially create a majority in their favor. It's a win for justice, it's a win for bipartisanship, and it's a win for democracy. Thank you for watching.